I paid way too much money for the first broken Xbox Series X on eBay to see if I can fix it. Before I get started disassembling this Xbox Series X, I do want to mention my favorite game console repair group on Facebook, the Game Console Repair Legion. When there's something I need to know about a game console, that's where I go to find the answers. So if you have questions about your game console repair, I recommend the Game Console Repair Legion Facebook group, and I'll leave a link down in the description. This video is not sponsored by them, it's just a great place to go to get information and connect with other fixers. Now with that all being said, let's get this thing unboxed and taken apart. Okay, it looks like we've got most everything here. I don't even remember if this is supposed to come with a controller. It does have the controller. That's handy. Let's check the condition of the controller. All right, actually looks pretty good. Even has batteries in it. Now let's get a look at the console itself. Okay, and here we go. It actually is in pretty good condition. This screw has not been removed, which means it has not been taken apart. That's great. HDMI port looks good. I need to look up and see what exactly was wrong with this in the listing. So the listing says for parts or not working, the Xbox light turns on and off right away and won't stay on. So now I need to plug it in and see what it does. And here we go with the power cable. Let's see if it'll turn on for me. Good so far. Okay, still on. I'm gonna plug in HDMI cable. Okay, and everything looks fine so far. Let's flip this so the right side is up. So I'm gonna try to keep setting it up and see what happens. It's good so far. This Xbox Series X is now updating the controller. The console updated all just fine, so clearly this Xbox Series X console is working just fine. Now, while I'm excited that I bought a console that was supposed to be broken, but it's actually just fine, I am disappointed for the video because that makes for sort of a boring video. Luckily, I've got another Xbox Series X from eBay that's broken. Well, let's see if this one's actually broken. All right, let's have a look inside the box. We've got our Xbox here. This one noted in the auction that it did not come with a controller. So this second Xbox Series X actually looks to be in pretty decent condition as well. This one, however, has been taken apart. And this one, the condition is by pieces or does not work. Sister won it in a raffle, does not turn on, does not include controls. So let's hook this one up and see if it'll turn on too. So this is the first Xbox that works fine. This is the second one that does not turn on. Let's see what happens when I try to turn it on. Okay, definitely no power at all there. Now it's time for everyone's favorite part. Let's take it apart. Okay, and so far I don't see any initial problems. This is the power supply connector here, so we've got to get this whole center chassis and all these components out so we can get down to it and see if anything's unplugged. Luckily, we do have a good working Xbox Series X that we can use the power supply from that one to put in this one and see if it's just a power supply issue. So first we need to take out the fan, then we got to get the bottom stand off, then we can get the screws off to get out this whole center chassis. Now I'm going to take out the power button out of the case just so then I can hook it up to this whole chassis and just try and power it on externally without it being in this case, just to see if that happens to work. Now I'm going to try and power this thing up without it being in the case. That way I can wiggle these little ribbon cables around and see if there's anything else I can notice. Most likely I won't be able to find anything wrong yet, but I'm going to try it anyways just to be sure. Anytime I'm diagnosing this type of a thing, I want to start with the simplest things first, assuming they're easily reachable, like the power button, and then move on to the more difficult things as I go along. Okay, and there's definitely just no power at all. Okay, so now I got to take it apart further and check out this power supply. Okay, and we have the power supply removed. Now we need to take a look at the inside of the power supply. So this slips in that metal casing very tightly. I'm guessing this is just now a matter of getting the clips off, and then we should be able to open this thing up. And once again, please don't try anything like this at home. These are very dangerous power supplies, as these large capacitors can hold a charge for a long time after it's unplugged. So don't mess with any sort of power supplies at home. So now I'm just gonna have a look at the inside of this power supply, see if there's anything obvious going on. And if not, then I'll plug it in and start checking the voltages out. We've got a 12-volt pin here and a 12-volt pin here, so those are going to be the first things I check. So unfortunately, this power supply has some sort of epoxy adhesive down under the motherboard, so it's very difficult to get this motherboard pried up. I'm not going to try that right now because I don't want to break anything. At some point, I might have to try that, but I don't think I need to right now. Also, it is interesting to note that you see globs of this adhesive, this epoxy, in various parts of this power supply. I'm guessing that is to keep the coil whine noise down and hopefully even just eliminate it. If you've seen my PS5 coil whine video, then you know that I have diagnosed that down to these capacitors. This maybe one or both of these two in the PS5 power supply. But as you can see, this one does have this goop all over here. So I'm guessing that's why, at least it seems like, the Xbox Series power supplies are quieter. Of course, it always could be just some other random reason that I don't know about, but that's what I'm guessing right now. So now I'm gonna plug it in and see if we have 12 volts on this pin and this pin. So we now have the power supply plugged in. I'm gonna put one probe on ground, the other probe on this pin. You can see we have 0 voltage. Now let's try this probe on ground and this probe on the 12-volt pin, and also 0 voltage. So that means the power supply on this Xbox Series X is faulty and the motherboard is likely good. I am gonna check and make sure we do have the correct voltage coming into the power supply by changing my meter to AC voltage, and then just touching this pin and this pin. And there we have 123 volts coming in. So that means we have the power coming in, but we don't have the correct power coming out of the power supply. So I was able to pry this board off of this bottom cover. It's got like this flexible epoxy stuff that has it stuck on there pretty good, but I was able to pry it off. Then there is this plastic and metal plate that I had to desolder to get to the bottom side of this PCB. It's also got these, I'm assuming they're thermal pads to help keep these various components cool. And then once we get past that, we're to the bottom side of the power supply PCB. Now I'm not gonna check too many things on this because I don't have any replacement parts or anything. One of the things I want to check is the fuse, just because that's a super easy thing to check. So this fuse should show very little or no resistance. And that's what it shows. Now I am touching the bottom of this power supply. It has been days since this has been powered on, and I have discharged the capacitors, so as there is no danger to me while I'm checking this power supply. So after that, the next things I suspect might be bad would probably be this little controller over here. Also, these, I'm assuming these are MOSFETs right here. There's also some on the top side right here. So I know on the PS4, those can go bad, but other than that, it's gonna be pretty hard to know what might be wrong with this. If you think you know what might be causing the problem on this power supply, then leave your comment down in the comment section so I can read that and check it. I'm gonna do another video on this. I do have another Series X coming in that has the same problem, supposedly, where it just won't power on. Luckily, I do have another power supply from an Xbox Series X, so I'm gonna put this one into this Series X and see if it'll power on. So now I'm just gonna mount this on here. Then we'll get it all put back together, or just put back together enough to test. I'm not gonna put the whole thing back together. Then we'll see if this one will power on. So that should be on good enough to test it out. Just need to hook up the power button and connect it to a power cable, and we'll see if it works. Okay, it's all hooked up to power. Let's see if it turns on. Yes, good so far. Let's see if it comes up on the TV. Yes, And there we go. This Xbox Series X just needed a new power supply. I'm gonna do another video on this power supply that's broken once I have a better idea of what's going on and once I can get a few parts so I can change some parts on it and see if we can diagnose that. I did buy another Xbox Series X that has a no power issue similar to this one, so whatever fixes this power supply might also fix that one, so keep an eye on my channel for that video and I'll get it out as soon as I can. I do need to get some parts for this. Once I have those parts, then I can start testing a few things. Be sure to check out Game Console Repair Legion on Facebook if you have any questions about your Xbox Series X or PlayStation or really any other game console. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good one.